we're at the B20 summit, and joining us for a special interaction is Mr. Vineet Mittal, someone who's also famously known as the solar man of the country, and he is of course the chairman of the Avaada group. He's also heading the B20 India task force on climate change and the sustainable environment here. So thank you for your time and this interaction. I'd like to begin by asking you in terms of the larger framework first, if that's all right with you. And we'd like to begin by asking you, we've been discussing climate change goals, we've been discussing climate financing here, but a lot has been discussed, and there is sometimes a lot people feel is being discussed at the policy level, but how do we transition that to the implementation level?
So if you look at what largely the developing countries are looking at, that we have not been responsible for all these emissions. So if you look at from an Indian context, our emissions are lower than what even the marine transport causes. So they are like probably 3.3%, we are less than 3% of the global emission. And if you look at in the per capita term, we are very low, probably not even in the top 50. So with such lower per capita emission, is it fair that India is getting punished? Look at the air quality in Delhi. But I think our Prime Minister has this vision of Vasudhaiv Kutumbukam, that one world, one earth, one family, and we have to take care of nature and nurture it. And from that mindset, India has set out a very ambitious target on 500 gigawatt of solar, wind, additional pumped hydro, then green ammonia, green methanol, green hydrogen on top of it, which is another 125 gigawatt. So all of this requires a lot of capital as well. So one of the expectation from the task force is that there should be a global collaboration, and we are not saying go and compensate for us for this, but help us speed up the transition. We are a home of 1.4 billion people, and what can largely developed nation can do, which can speed up, is in the area of financing, technology transfer, in the area of more collaboration on, say, if India is producing green hydrogen, can some of these countries like Europe, Japan, Korea, Singapore, can they give us some quota so that the green molecule goes from global south to global north, and that could create a marketplace and show that the world is looking in a just and fair fashion. And that's what has been the largely goal, that we all agree that we have to collaborate with the world, we need to work together, we need to ensure accelerated greening of the universe, and we seek that how we can use the global knowledge pool and global capital to make it happen, and that's the broader agenda. And it should not be just on the notes which we upload on the website, but it has to be actionable and doable, and it should make an impact into the people's life, so that all the hard work done under G20 leadership is visible to human. And that's the intent of CII, that's the intent of the task force, and that's what we are trying by advocating with the policy maker to convert it into policy, and once it's a part of policy, it will start yielding the result.
Absolutely, there is a need to just collaborate on this, like you said. But if I were to ask you the difference between the developing world and the developed world and the targets there, is there anything concrete you have at the moment on that?
So there is a lot of wish list. Say for example, if say Sri Lanka has to borrow and they borrow in dollar, they have to pay a huge forex hedging cost, and if that cost can be kind of pooled together, and say IMF or any multilateral body can hedge the cost, or the first loss guarantees, or lower cost of capital for green transition. So if some concrete action on those basis, so for everything we had very specific recommendation, and what policy action should Globe take, multilateral institute take, and then lot of the stuff has to be done at the local level, and lot of the stuff has to be done at the citizens level, because everything governments can't do. So like what our Prime Minister says, lifestyle for environment. So the shirt probably both of us are wearing has consumed 8,000 litre. Can we be conscious about that aspect and be aware that our every action has an impact on environment and for our future generation.
Right.
And the more responsible we are in all our behavior, the more result will be visible on the ground.
Absolutely, and NDTV has in fact been covering this in detail, like you said, whether it's clothing or whether it's anything else on the impact on the environment, and NDTV has been addressing these concerns.
I
But
remember
would like to-
once I did a session for you guys
Yes.
with Mr. Pranav Rai along with Mr. Bachchan, where you do that whole day on environment.
The
and such.
telethon.
Yeah.
Right. The telethon, we've had climate special segments.
Correct.
So NDTV has been very, very closely looking at this, like even before it became really a talking point. So that's
true.
there for sure. But now leaving that aside, if I had to ask you that, look, this is what you've said is the larger framework, right? But within the Avaada group, what are your goals and what are you looking at the moment?
So for Avaada, our name is derived from Ayurveda, which means science of life. So we say that we are blessed and lucky that our source of business is the divinity of sun god, wind god and Jaldev. And we are using these natural resources in abundance and converting them into greener electron. And now our another line of business is converting into green hydrogen, green ammonia and green methanol, which can run our trucks, which can run our cars, which can run our ships, which will eventually run aeroplanes someday. So what we are looking at, that the green electricity is almost solving only 20% of the whole energy uses. If you look at primary energy uses, 80% is other sources. And how do we decarbonize that?
Right.
So our business is actually decarbonizing the economy, solving for energy shortage, making sure that we are able to give affordable green energy on demand and affordable green molecule on demand.
Right. Could you tell us more about your solar manufacturing plant? Is there a timeline in place?
So we will be operational next year, part of the capacity, and by 2025 we will be fully operational all the way. We'll convert the silicon to modules. So silicon will go to ingot, ingot to wafer, wafer to cell, cell to solar panels, and solar panel into electricity, and electricity splits the water into hydrogen and oxygen, and use hydrogen to make green ammonia and stuff like that.
Very, very interesting. And lastly, I just want to ask you, if you had to give the world a message for 2025, right, and the top priorities that we must look at, say by 2025, what would they be?
The time is now. We have already been irresponsible towards Mother Earth. The time has come that every movement we take care of nature. If we don't nurture the nature, we are looking for a big problem. And what will be all this money worth if there is no universe left to enjoy and live? So please accelerate transitioning into the green and more responsible living.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time and this interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.